run your own race. That's a really good bit of advice that someone gave me once. Run your own race. Try not to tap into other people around you. Reassure yourself. And if you have to slow down slightly, do it.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who right now is probably driving around town, singing her favorite music at the top of her lungs, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me for this special edition of the Running for Real podcast. Today, I'm coming to you on National Running Day. Now, I'm not sure if National Running Day is a thing around the world or it's just in the US, but either way, it's a day to celebrate. So why not give you a bonus episode? And I thought I would bring on a member of Team Ice Cream. I'm going to be sprinkling in these bonus episodes now and again. So make sure you subscribe to the Running for Real podcast on your favorite podcast player so that these come directly to you. You don't have to search for them. You don't have to have me sending you blog posts. They will come right to your phone or player. That's the logistical stuff out the way. So today I thought I'd bring Evie on. Now, many of you would have heard my interview with Evie on the Run to the Top podcast. And, it was a great interview. We talked about a lot of things. It was very casual. And actually, funny enough, this one was a bit more of a serious, maybe not so much serious, but just kind of more of a getting helpful information for you. And just kind of, I think you're going to get a lot out of this. And it actually didn't go in the direction I expected it to. So we kind of talk about the winning mindset. We go through a race and all the kind of various mental breakdowns we tend to have and how to overcome them. We talk about why to share or not share if you are going through struggles. And of course, we cover No Watch Me. For those of you who know what that means, you will be chuckling a little to yourself. If you do not, and you do have Facebook, I would encourage you to join the Facebook community. I will put a link in the show notes, which you will hear about in the episode. But that is enough from me. Let's go talk to Evie. Evie, my dear, dear, dear friend, I am so excited to welcome you to this special edition of the Running for Real podcast. How are you, my friend?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Tina, on your fantastic show. I am really well today. How could I not be? It's Friday. The weather in the UK is phenomenally beautiful. It's hot. And I mean, really hot. It's mid-20s, which for us is, at this time of year, is really hot. So everyone's happy. The weekend's coming and I've had a good week. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you.
I'm hoping that you are enjoying the summer because this is probably it, right? You got these few days and then it will be raining and cold the rest of the year.
No, I know. If you look at last Saturday, it was, I swam in the river and it was, 11 degrees, in the water, and outside probably wasn't much warmer than that. And 5 days later, and it is literally 28 degrees, I think, today. It's crazy. So yeah, I am enjoying it, making the most of it. Doesn't make it easy to stay inside and work, though.
No,
I have to say.
I'm not surprised. Although it's funny, people often say to me like, oh, what is England like? What is Great Britain like? And I'll say, there's a lot of similar things. I said people are a lot more pessimistic and kind of a bit down a lot of the time. And I honestly think it's because the weather is so grey and just dreary that it makes people feel that way. But I know that whenever the weather is like it is right now, everyone is hi, and it's just everyone's really just happy. So I can only imagine what it's like right now.
Oh, you're right. There's a complete contrast. That is the other thing. You see the culture that people just flip from, getting, being quite within themselves and, going from A to B, head down, not really talking, and then the sun comes out and everyone is just in holiday mode, T-shirts on, let's go out.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's great.
So for those of you who didn't listen to the Run to the Top interview or who don't know of you, I would encourage people to go back and listen to that episode, but maybe you can tell the story of how we know each other, if you can remember, and then we can go from there.
How we know each other? Well, we met through. How did we meet? It's been a few years. Was it through runners? Was it through the running
Evie.
magazine?
Breaking my heart.
Was it true?
Yeah, it was.
I know. No, we met through Running Fitness at the time, which is now called Running Magazine. So I'm one of the editors of the magazine on a freelance basis. That's one of my hats. And I think I was doing a story on DNF or DNS, and you and another friend of yours, I think Sarah
Slattery, yep.
Yes, you guys, I contacted you and you were so helpful with comments. I mean, you gave me fantastic perspectives, really good comments about whether it's better to have a DNS or a DNF. So it did not finish or it did not start. And you wrote a long, really well thought out, in-depth
I don't know if it's well thought out. It's usually just a ramble. You know that by now.
It was a good ramble, and that was how we met, and we went from there. So we actually met here when you came over, but I've been your sports psychologist for 2 years, maybe. So 2 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So shared your journey of 2015-16 when you had a real roller coaster and you achieved lots of your goals. So that was a really exciting time for me to be able to share that journey with you. So thank you. And we've become friends.
Yep. You've paid your dues with that, though, with the amount of times you've had to talk me off the ledge with when I've been going a bit, Evie, I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed. But one thing I want to ask you is, I'm sure people are curious as you mentioned it, what did you find about DNS versus DNF?
The ultimate finding is that it's different for everybody. And what I found was that half of the people I talked to made a good point about if you've got an injury and you listen to your body so intuitively, you feel that, this isn't really going to be wise to go into a race. You make the decision not to start. But it does depend on your goals, and it depends on the type of race. It depends on where you are with your training. And also, talking to some people, some actually said that they prefer to make the decision to go into the race, so start, but they've thought through the fact that they will be okay if they have to stop. And that was another key point. Think that through in your mind before you do start, if you decide to start the race. So be okay with the what if. What if I do have to stop? What if the injury gets worse? Go through those scenarios and think of the answer to those. And if you're comfortable with that, go ahead and follow through. So start the race.
And what about if someone, so is the only situation really when you should drop out because of an injury, or are there any other, should you drop out if there's something mentally going on? I mean, obviously if you're sick maybe, or ill, that's something wrong, but are there any other situations where people should drop out?
Well, I think, do that whole health check. So go through the physical, because actually a lot of the mental fatigue and the mental anxiety and stress in a race can often be linked to something physiologically that is out of balance. And a couple of coaches made that point to me when I was writing that article. So do a body check. Have I had enough fuel? Have I had enough hydration? Is my pace off? Am I going too fast? Are my shoes comfortable? Do all of that first. And often people find that actually I do need to have some fuel, or I do need to just slow down a moment. I do need to have a drink. And then they do that, and that then has a sort of knock-on effect for that mental stress that they're feeling. So that's really important to remember.
Okay.
But should they, no, I think, obviously injury will determine that for you. But then you do have, some people can run through pain or have a much, the pain tolerance is a scale, isn't it? And everybody's on that. And again, it depends on experience. Some people are experienced running with niggles. We all have niggles of sorts, and again, they vary on that scale of intensity. Should you run with a niggle? Is it a 2 out of 10? Is it a 3 out of 10? Have you seen your physician? What do they think? What does your coach think? And sometimes you can while you're sort of managing that injury, but sometimes you can't. And if it's a really intense pain, then obviously I think you need to sort of stop and get that checked out properly. But yeah, I think mentally in a race, if you're really, really overwhelmed and it's not going as planned and you're starting to become very, very stressed, the first thing I'll do is breathe, because often people forget to do that when they're worried. They stop breathing, and that makes your body worse. You tense up. Take a breath. Stop if you have to stop. depending on the type of race. I speak with a lot of endurance runners and who take part in ultra events. And ultra running's a completely different journey from that of a collegiate runner or, a 10K runner. It's not really about the times. It's about the actual journey and the performance, from A to B. It's not so much the time. So it is quite different for everybody. Not an easy one to answer.
And what about, let's say someone does drop out and they're feeling really bad about themselves, either through an injury or just, had a weak moment and dropped out. Any thoughts for overcoming the kind of guilt associated with that? As I know we tend to beat ourselves up. Even if you did stop because of an injury, I didn't know what to do. I felt so bad. Did I do the right thing? What would you say for that?
Yeah, firstly, it's really important, as I said before, when you go into that race, go through all of those scenarios in your mind that could happen. And you don't want to focus on, what if I have to drop out? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, have a mental plan and a mental strategy going into the race. So plan it, have your race strategy, and also have those contingencies. So if you have got an injury, for example, and there is a possibility that it could go either way in the race, the first thing to do is to ask yourself, what's your goal with the race? Is it important to do that specific race, or could you do another one a week later? Is it a points-based race? Is that a qualifier for anything? So that's important to think about. Secondly, ask yourself, will I be okay if I have to drop out? Because if you do that before you run the race and your answer is, yep, I'm going to be okay with it, then when it does happen, you still will have feelings of disappointment, sure, but you can then go back to where you before the race and say, well, actually, no, I made the decision that I'd be okay with this. I'm going to be okay with it. Draw a line under it and learn from it. You can always learn something from every race. And I've spoken to several colleagues and, renowned sports psychologists who that's one of the first things they say. There's always something that you can learn from, a DNF. If you've run half of the marathon before you have to stop and you ran well, that's a half marathon that you ran well, isn't it? Even though you didn't complete the marathon, that's still considered something that you've done and you've done well. So I think sit down, accept that it is a disappointment and allow yourself to feel that way. And in terms of beating yourself up, well, you've got two choices, haven't you? You can either be upset with yourself and disappointed, which is often an initial reaction, but you can also, as I said, learn from it and say to yourself, well, what can I take from this? And then reflect on that. What could I have done differently? And what can I learn for next time?
Okay. Nope, that's helpful because I think that's something that isn't often discussed. And if you do feel that way, even if you do have to DNS, DNF, if you drop out for any other reason. So I'm glad we kind of talked about that. And one thing I wanted to ask you that I just realized I didn't do, and I seem to be in a habit of forgetting to do this, but I usually ask my guests for a fun fact or a hidden talent. So do you have anything that you can share that maybe Grant, your husband, knows, but you haven't ever put it out there publicly that would be fun for people to learn about?
I used to do backup singing.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
No. Yeah, again, it's not at any amazing national level.
I don't know.
But locally I used to.
That's cool.
And my mum used to dress me in this little watermelon suit, one piece with flares.
Watermelon? Oh,
it's green and I look like a watermelon, basically. I've never forgiven her for that.
Will you send us a photo to put on the show notes?
Yeah, sure.
That would be amazing.
I'll have to find one. So singing in the shower is something I do quite a lot.
That's the best time to sing, isn't it? Or in the car.
Yeah, well, no, when you sound amazing to yourself.
Yeah, I know. That's what I do. I turn it up so loud that I can't hear my own voice, and then I think I sound good. But...
Exactly. You're hearing the music. You're thinking, I can sing in key. This is great.
I can sing like a man. I can sing like high pitch.
I didn't know that about you either.
Yeah. Oh, I love singing in the car. And last time we spoke, Evie, I mean, you and I have talked since, but everyone else listening, you were working on your website and it's now live. So maybe, when we first spoke, you were talking about how you'd become certified and you were starting to build up your network and your community, I guess. So tell us about how things are going now.
Well, it's really good. So I'm a sport and exercise psychologist, for those of you who haven't listened to the first interview with Tina yet. And so I've been a journalist most of my life, and my late 30s I retrained and did a psychology diploma here, and then I did a master's in sport and exercise psychology, and I'm now, I think technically the term is sport and exercise psychologist in training. So I have a supervisor and a team of colleagues who are also part of my supervision group, and we get together every few months and share our experiences and reflect on our training. And so I'm working. It's really exciting. I have quite a few one-to-one clients at the moment, and, you know, I'm trying to do as much group work as I can and have as many different experiences as I can with athletes. Everyday exercises, so people who, you know, want to make healthy lifestyle changes and they need some help with behavior change and creating new healthy habits, right through to athletes and helping them with aspects of their performance, you know, mental strategies for the nerves and, you know, the confidence and various aspects of their sport. So it's I love my job because the thing I really love about what I do is, and I don't really know if I do a lot, but what I love is that I'll help you realize that you've got all the answers and the tools for yourself. So I help support you discover those and teach you some techniques, but, you know, ultimately you do it for yourself. So for me, that's really powerful, and, you know, I can see the benefits when we've worked together and, you know, things are going well for you and for anyone else I work with. It's so wonderful to be a part of that, you know. It's great.
And you go so far above and beyond to like really help and do the best you can. And it's just wonderful. And anyone listening, if you are looking for someone to work with, I cannot recommend Evie enough. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows by now how much I preach about how you were the one that, you know, really initiated the change of when I took all those big leaps last year. So, or the year before that. So everyone knows that. But one thing I wanted you to talk about, Evie, so a few months ago, you had me fill out a thing called a winning mindset. And it was a really cool, like, I don't know, just concept, I guess, to think about. And I kind of enjoyed doing that. And it was something unique that I'd never seen. But I thought that's something that people can do pretty easily to kind of get them in tune with, you know, where their mind is at. So maybe you could explain that for everyone, because I think they'll love it.
Yeah, that was that the winning wheel, that winning feeling? Was that the one?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So you had like all the branches coming off the side.
Yeah. So there's, you know, a lot of background behind it, and I can go into that. Maybe I can send you some information that, you know, you can post for your audience and readers. But just in a snapshot of that is, so for people who struggle in a race mentally and have, you know, moments during the race where, you know, they've done the training and they go into the race feeling confident, but perhaps it doesn't take much for their confidence to be knocked and feel, you know, that you're wobbling and you need some help, and that you're, you know, mentally you need to refocus and be strong. So the winning feeling, the winning mindset, it's a really good exercise. You have a piece of paper, A4, you have yourself in the middle, little circle, so you have Tina, and then you have some branches off, just arrows pointing off all around you. And there's several different things you can do, but you think of a time in your training, in your career. It might be a race, it might not be. It might be during a training camp, when you were sitting in the evening having dinner one day after a really good training day. The point is to pick a time where you felt really happy, really content, really confident with where you were with your training and your performance, and find that time. It's often, you know, associated with running, but not always. And then write down what that scenario was. So I was sitting trackside, I just done a really good session, the sun was shining, and write down everything that you remember about that time. So the sounds, the sights, smells, you know, who was there, and so as much description as you can. And, you know, it might be a paragraph or two long, and then you read it to yourself. And then on that piece of paper, pick a word or a phrase that you associate with that experience. And it could be cheering crowds, it could be in the zone, it could be basically words that resonate with you, that you feel remind you of that time when you felt confident. And you write those down all around your name. And, you know, there's no rule. They don't have to be many. There could be 3, but there might be more. There might be, you know, 10. And they don't have to be sentences, just a word or a phrase. and then look at that winning wheel, that winning feeling, and read all of those phrases. And when you read each one, think about why you've written that there. And, oh, yeah, that was the sun was so bright and it was so warm that day, and I just remember feeling really great. It could be big grin, because you couldn't stop grinning because you felt so happy.
Mm-hmm.
The key is the emotion that's tied to each phrase, and that links.
So should it make you smile, even just saying the words that you write down? Like if you write big grin, it should kind of bring a smile to your face, or like the sunny day, bring a smile to your face because it reminds you of that memory. Is that how kind of strong you're talking about here with?
At times, but it might just be a feeling. You just feel it's a nice feeling. It could be a comfort.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a mantra that you use all the time that gives you confidence, but you remember it on that specific day because you'd written it on your ankle or you'd written it on your arm. Anything, it's very personal. So any word or phrase that you associate with that time.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to familiarize yourself with all of the phrases. And when you are training or racing, any time in your running where you start to feel like you're wobbling mentally, think of one of those words. And the more you practice doing it, the more you'll be able to link that emotion from that time where you felt confident back to that moment. And that's the aim of that, to sort of help you replicate that winning feeling, that wonderful content feeling, and that confident feeling that you had back at that time, in that moment when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. And then would you say that it would be good for people to maybe write those words on their arm as like mantras to say, or is that kind of make it like it's not as effective when you need it?
No, I think absolutely. In fact, my husband Grant, that's why I mentioned it just now, he was telling me during a half Ironman or one of the marathons that he ran in recent years, he wrote, there's a race number, I think, of Emil Zapatek when he won, Emil Zapatek won the 5,000, the 10,000, the marathon. I mean, an incredible athlete. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, he's one of Grant's inspirational, heroes, really. And he had a race number, which was quite well known. And Grant used to write that race number on his own ankle.
Mm.
And I said to him, oh, that's a great idea. And he said, well, I did. I used to write the race number, but I didn't always see it. But the fact that I'd actually written it on my ankle, I knew it was there, and that gave me comfort. So that was interesting. So you don't always have to see it, but the fact that you've gone through that process of writing it down, you've linked that to a winning feeling. It makes you feel good. It could be a pre-race routine or ritual that you do. But the point is, it makes you feel good, gives you confidence. So, it works for you.
Okay, cool. That's helpful. And then any other suggestions while we're talking about races? Like, let's say someone feels like exactly what you said. Once those negative thoughts start, they kind of spiral out of control. Like, any other suggestions on things that would be really effective for people to do either during a race or before the race?
Yeah, it's hard. It's quite, personal for everybody. It's different for everyone. But, the first thing I'd recommend is do that body check. So breathe, because often, yourself when you're racing, your mind starts to wander, you start to lose focus, you're distracted from how you're physically performing. And so breathing, being conscious, taking yourself to your breath, making yourself be aware of yourself, breathing deep into your diaphragm and feeling your breath going through your body, it has to have a positive effect more than a negative effect. I think it has to relax your muscles, because if you're breathing, it's hard for them to tense up. And if they're not tense, mentally you'll start to feel better. So the first thing I'd say is take a few deep breaths. And, depending on what it is that's worrying you, we'll give me an example. In a race, a time where you felt really mentally you're starting to really struggle. Does it happen in the middle or at the end of a race?
I'd say, I kind of talked about this in a few of my blog posts, which I'll put links to in the show notes, about like mental versus like physical, like the freakouts, what I called them. But like, I would always find like early in the race, like maybe in a marathon, it'd be at like mile 8 or 9. It'd be like, oh, I have such a long way to go. How am I ever gonna finish this? So maybe start with that.
Yeah, that's it's one of those things, isn't it? Always thinking about what's ahead rather than what you've actually run, or even just being in the moment. So try and really focus on where you are right now. And when you start to think like that, oh gosh, I've got another 10 miles, it can really affect you, can't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh, yeah.
you know, and then you realize what you have done. You think, oh, I'm not even halfway through. And so those thoughts, they can be really detrimental to your performance. So I would advise to breathe and tell yourself, I'm okay, you know, I've got this, and take yourself back to your training. You know, I've always said that to you. The facts are there. The reality is that you've done the training and it's brought you all the way through that journey to the start of that race, and you're fit, you're ready, you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think of that, because that can give you confidence. I've done the training. I've done my homework. I can do this. I can get through this. You know, reassure yourself.
Okay.
Because no one else will. If you can't reassure yourself, no one else can.
No, that's helpful.
You know, got to believe in yourself. And then also, if it's a big event, you've got the crowds. But some people do find that's distracting. How do you find that? Do you find if you're having a bit of mental stress, that the crowds are more of a distraction, or they're actually more of a comfort? Because I've had people that have said both.
I mean, the two situations I can think about crowds are London, and in both situations it helped. But I kind of, if it was early in the race, I would say to myself that I was taking their energy and I was going to put it in my pocket and save it for later. And so I would kind of use that, like say I was going to use their energy, or I would imagine, I've mentioned this many times before, like in my last marathon, I would imagine that the people in the crowds were, you know, you guys listening, like people who support me and want me to do well. And I'd kind of imagine it was like my community, my tribe, like around me. And they were the ones cheering. And so every time anyone was like, go on, I was like, oh, they're cheering for me. And they are. And that's one thing I think we often forget as runners, is that if these people are clapping their hands or they're cheering, they are cheering for you. Like Absolutely. They might not know your name, but they are cheering for you. They are taking their energy and putting it into clapping or whatever. So yeah, I think that definitely is a good one to think about.
It's a really good tip. And that's the other thing, you know, you can also, runners out there, you can put your name on your T-shirt. And I've found that to be really effective, because people will call out your name. You know, looking strong, Evie, fantastic, great running. You know, that's been shouted out. And that really gives me a confidence boost. Yep. It really does. It's almost like that fuel injected energy that you need.
So then that's definitely I want to kind of move on. So let's keep going with a race. So we said maybe a third of the way through the race, you have your first like, oh God, I've got a long way. So then what about like just after halfway, we usually have a bit of a panic thinking I'm already tired and I'm only halfway. What should someone do then? So
I would, again, congratulate yourself that you've done this, you've gone this far. This is great. I've done this. I've done, 16 miles, or what is it, 13 of a marathon, a half marathon. You've got through that. And again, do a body check. I feel great. Okay, I'm tired. Yes, but I can do this. I've done the training. I can do this. The crowd are with me. And think of your social support too. That's another good thing. Your coach, for you, that's Steve. Think of your friends that support you. Think of your family who are in that crowd somewhere or at the end of the race, your children. And, run your own race. That's a really good bit of advice that someone gave me once. Run your own race. Try not to tap into other people around you. Reassure yourself. And if you have to slow down slightly, do it. Again, it's not the end of the world. It means that it could help you start to feel calm, get that breath going, slow down just a little bit, reassure yourself you can do this. Think of your training that you've done. And then also, you can break up that what's left into sort of shorter sections. So you can say, right, I've only got 2 miles before I have some nutrition or have some more water. That's great. I can do this. Yeah. So break it up into smaller sections.
That helpful. Yeah, I found that helpful to break it up into like threes.
Threes, yeah.
Like 3 mile chunks or 5K chunks. And then that's why I used the whole mental bottles thing that we talked about with.
That was a fantastic idea.
Yeah, which I guess I can explain that now for anyone who doesn't know. I will put a link in the show notes for telling you how. And those are going to be at tinamuir.com/Evie. And then we'll do Evie 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many of these we do. So tinamuir.com/Evie. So yeah, I did what I did for California International, which Evie kind of gave me the seed that helped me use it, but actually it was helpful. I picked every 5K I would dedicate to someone else or a group of people. So the first 3 miles of the race I dedicated to what I called my fans, which is you guys listening, all the people that have wished me good luck, or people that you know, or whoever it may be. And then I think the next 3 miles I did to my friends, like at home, and people that have known me, who know me outside of running. And then I did my family, and then I did, I'm trying to think who else I did. I don't know. I went through. Evie was one, Drew was one, Steve was obviously one, and myself was the last one. And I found that really helped, because it just maintained my mental focus for 3 miles to keep saying like the easiest one for me to remember is Drew's one. I kept saying, Drew made me strong. Drew made me strong, because Drew is my strength training coach. So it was like easy for me to keep repeating, Drew made me strong for 3 miles, but it wasn't a whole race. So it didn't get old. So like the first one, it was, and each one had like a word that I could use or a phrase that I could use. Like your one was brave, I think. Yeah, brave. So I kept saying, be brave, be brave, be brave, over and over again. And so I found that really helpful, like you said, kind of breaking it up and then saying, okay, well, I've got, 2 miles left of be brave, and then I get to do another one kind of thing. So I called that mental bottles, and I found that really helped. And it's kind of like what you were saying about breaking it up. And I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. A lot of athletes do that. They break out that from halfway, particularly, whether it be checkpoint to checkpoint, or as you did, the 3 miles. Some people it's 2 miles, whatever works for you. But, making those shorter goals, as soon as you get to that 3 mile point, you feel confident because you've achieved it. And you've also run 3 miles without really thinking about it. And it stops you thinking about, I've got this much left of the race, which can draw your energy away from you, drain you almost. So it's definitely a good strategy.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone wants to try that and does try that, let me know. Okay, so next bit, let's say when you physically start to kind of unravel. So let's say like 3/4 of the way through, your body is like shutting down. You can say to yourself, I've only got to get 2 miles. But then you think, well, I can't even make it 2 miles. I can't even make it to the next. All I can focus on is to getting to the next like light post on the side of the road or something. So what about when you physically start to break down, really struggling?
Really struggling again, breathing, because breathing can relax you. And I would focus on one part of this is mental, but also physical. So start to focus on your body in separate parts. So think about your head and feel that. Try and relax your head and your neck and smile. Try and relax your jaw. Think of your shoulders and, these are really tense, but I can just relax them a little bit more. Go back to when you've trained and you had really good form in your training, and try and replicate that. With your legs, take your mind down to your core. Are you upright? Are you using your core? Is your footfall the best it can be? If you have to slow down a little bit in order to regain your form, then, you do that. And, your hands. And often I find this, I don't know whether you do this, a marathon's a long way. And if you're in the same position for a long time, you can get quite tense and almost get cramps. And often people complain of sort of nervy, numb shoulders and sort of high upper arms. So loosen them, I'm standing up now, but relax them, sort of shake your arms out and then get them back into that running position, and then breathe and tell yourself, I'm okay, I can do this. In training, it gets hard, and I'm always feeling good at the end of this training, and I know that, I'm strong. Again, draw on the people around you who have helped you get to that point. So for you, it was Drew, your strength coach. Think of all of that conditioning work that you did, all of the good nutrition that you followed, and even down to the cross training you've done. All of that has combined to help you get to that point in that race.
Okay.
So go through your body and even your feet. Try and feel your feet relax a little bit. It is really hard and it is quite intense. The end of a marathon and often you're trying to give yourself that burst and go a little bit quicker. It is quite intense. But, if you're reassuring yourself, I think is the key, and going really into yourself and focusing, and that mantra that you've got, for you, it's be brave, be brave. Another one of yours was endure, I think, endure or maintain.
Yeah.
So something that's rhythmic, something that you can follow with your footfall. So there's a tempo to it.
Oh, okay.
That can often be really helpful as well. So mantras.
Yep. No, that's great. And then one more before we move on to, I want to talk a bit more about just general running motivation and stuff. But so what about if someone is thinking to themselves, has got to the point where they're like, why do I do this? Like, I don't know why I bother. This hurts so much. This is so uncomfortable. Like maybe it's like a mile to go, or maybe a bit further than that. But like at some point I could see like 23 miles of a marathon or like a, 10 miles of a half marathon. Why do I do this? Why do I put myself through this? What do you say then?
So I think it's a really good point, and it's really important for those that are new to running or those that have been running for a long time. Think about why you run and the purpose behind your running, because often runners will say, well, I want to start running, I want to lose a few pounds, or I want to raise money for a charity that my friend's raising money for, and they start running, and that's great. But you've got to really understand what's motivating you to do what you're doing. So it could be that you want to lose weight, but it could be because you want to be a lot healthier, because you want to be, a good mentor and role model for your children, and you want to be able to be fit as you get older and have fun with your family. So linking that greater purpose, almost your why, is really important as a runner. And the reason for that partly is because when you get to that point in the race where you're starting to question why this is so hard, this is painful, why am I doing this? You'll know why, because you've thought about it before. You have a very clear understanding of why you've taken that decision to be a runner. So it's not something that people think about very often, and it sounds obvious, but actually when you sit down and really think about, why do I run? Not because I love it. Yes, but why do I love it? Because it makes me feel good mentally. I feel confident. And you can draw on all of those reasons when you need to at that point in the race where, you really need to give yourself that motivation and that confidence.
Okay, that's really helpful. All right, let's go something a little bit on a different tangent, and then we'll go back to, I want to ask you about like losing running mojo, but as that was quite a lot of information in one go. So something I didn't mention to you that I was going to talk about this, but something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, so, I mean, this, everyone listening knows this. I've shared my story and what I've been doing, stopping running, gaining weight, trying to get my body functioning again. And, I feel like I've handled the weight gain and the change in lifestyle of not being a runner pretty well. And for me, I kind of like cut it off suddenly and just stopped running, and it was fine. But, a lot of people have been surprised by that. Do you think that is a personality thing and my personality is just okay with like all or nothing? Or do you think that everyone can adapt to a big life change pretty easily, or does it depend on the person? I was just curious. I don't know what your thoughts on that.
I think it's a good question. I think both. I think, I know you and I know your personality, and you are, all or nothing. You put your heart and soul into everything you do. And so to make that decision to take a break from running for you was, it took you, it was a big decision. And I think once you made that decision, you had other things going on that you were focusing on. And also you did have a reason. You did really know why you wanted to do it. So, in your case, I mean, it is amazing. That transition has been remarkable. However, you do write a lot. And that's the other thing. Writing's really therapeutic.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, that's the second thing I was going to say. So for me, writing has been therapeutic. So would you encourage people to kind of share their struggles, or is it, again, another thing that depends on the person? Like, let's say someone is going through an injury and they're feeling really down and they don't want to talk to friends and family because they'll kind of be like, it's just running, like, get over it. Would it help to kind of share with the community, or is this something where it really depends on the person, whether it's actually going to benefit you or not?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a really personal choice. And I for me, I think talking about it and sharing it, if you're comfortable doing that and it makes you feel better, can be really healing. But you might get a journal, a diary, and write a letter to your community, but not post it. Just the actual process of writing it and getting it out, being able to read it, can be so beneficial, because often you have all these thoughts going on in your head. All of that emotion goes round and round and round. But when you put it out on paper, it's there, it's over there, it's out of sight.
Yes.
You've separated it from your mind in a way that you're then able to read it and to just maybe understand it and accept it more. So I think journal writing is really good. And I'd recommend anyone to do that, And sometimes people talk to people they don't know, someone in their running group or their running community, and they feel that they can trust.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good idea to share it.
Okay.
But online running is huge now, and I think lots of people have virtual running friends.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I've just written about this in an article, and you've got your real running friends, human running friends, and then you've got your online community, one of the social networks. But they can often be just as important to people as their real friends,
And that's what I've been enjoying with the Running for Real community, which I know you're in, and all the superstars I have in there. And anyone listening is welcome to join if you are interested, and I'll put a link in the show notes. But I definitely agree with everything.
Your running family. Yeah,
exactly.
I could see your whole face just lit up when you said your running community, because it is your family.
Mm-hmm.
You love them, and they mean a lot to you, and you trust people. And also, the more you share about yourself, the more people get to know you and know your personality, and that builds a relationship. So it's good.
No, that's good. Although one thing that's funny, Evie, so I don't know if you've been listening much, but at the beginning I have a random fact read out about me by my podcast editor, Jeremy. And so when I did one of them about not liking citrus flavored things, I don't know if you listened to that one, but I got so many people reach out, how do you not like citrus? And I was just like, I just don't. And that seemed to be a conversation point for a while, that people were like, you don't like citrus? I was like, no. So it's funny.
I'm going to ask you, how can you not like citrus, Tina?
I just don't. Like, I mean... Lemony things are okay. I hate orange flavored things or lime flavored things. Like, I just
hang on.
Like, I'll eat like a lemon tart or like a lemon cake or something, but it would never be the one I would choose. But like, I like citrus flavored like drinks or like citrus, really anything. I'm not really, I don't know. I prefer like berry flavored things or like sugar flavored things, with my sweet tooth.
Flavored things, not the sour.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't beat a good lemon drizzle cake though, because the top's all sweet and sour.
Lemon drizzle is good. I'll give you that. That was always my Nanny Jolly's favourite cake, and she loved it. So, I'll give you lemon drizzle. Although this is way too much information and completely unrunning related. But as this is a bonus episode, if you're listening to this, you probably care. But a few days ago, I decided I wanted to make a cake. I wanted to make a Mary Berry recipe. So I was like, I'm going to make this Mary Berry cake. So I made the cake. And it said like 8 egg yolks in the recipe. And she had like a caramel buttercream for the frosting. And it said 8 egg yolks, but I put in 8 eggs, not reading the recipe properly. The cake came out all like gummy-ish, like really like stodgy. And Steve and I were like looking at each other like, this is okay, but not great. So we both looked at each other, and I was kind of like, do you think? And he was like, yeah. So we literally scraped all the like frosting, the icing off the cake into a tub. And then the next day I made the cake again, and we threw away the old one. But
and you used the same frosting.
Well, I did, but then because he put Steve had like drawn stars and like covered it in writing icing, I think that made the frosting a little bit thinner. So then I put the frosting on this new cake, and now the frosting was pink because of this red icing that had like mixed in. And then I spread it over, and then I went to kind of cut a piece like a few hours later, and all the sides had like slumped down. So there was like a blob on the top, and there was like a puddle at the bottom, and I was like, well, this cake just wasn't meant to be. So
what was the cake? What was it called?
Well, I actually mixed two recipes together, but the actual cake, the recipe, it was the caramel buttercream that was tempting us, and it was from a bake-off, a British bake-off thing she did. And it was, I can't remember the name of it. It had a weird name for the cake, but it looked really good. But apparently I'm not good enough with cooking. But
what a shame. Well, you have to try it again.
I will. Trust me. Now that'll annoy me because I didn't do a very good job. So I'll have to like redo it. But anyway, okay, back to the point. One more thing I wanted to ask you about before we get back to running Mojo and stuff. What are your thoughts on like social media? So, because I'm always talking about how like social media can be like really toxic for people, about making us feel like bad about ourselves. Like if you scroll through your feed and all you see is this, I ran, a 50-minute PR. I did this, I did that. And like, if you're not feeling great about yourself, it can make you feel worse. What are your thoughts on like what to do about that?
Yeah. I'd say avoid it. In that case, if it starts to make you feel really unhappy, and just take a break, or perhaps just be really aware of why you're even on social media and why you post your runs. Recent research shows that if you're part of a running community online and you post your runs and your times, etc., and you're in a group, it does make you run faster and further. So people, without realizing it, or they might, but they are competitive, and so and it can be motivating. Someone's just gone and done a 6-mile run through the forest, and they've posted fantastic run, whatever the time was, feel great. It can give you that buzz. Oh, I'm not going to a run now, which is great, and that's the positive side of social media. I think though, there's always a tendency to, how much is too much? It's difficult to know, isn't it? Personally, I use technology when I run sometimes, but not all the time. And I always try and have a balance. So I would say just be mindful.
Okay.
Be aware. Do a little self-check. Why am I going on here? Am I looking because it's making me feel good, or am I looking because I want to make sure no one's run further than I have today? Just be careful.
Okay.
And but it can be really motivating at the same time.
So I spend a lot of time telling the community and anyone I talk to really not to look at their pace during their running. And we call it, in the group, we call it #NoWatchMe.
No watch me,
So not looking at your pace, you can wear your watch, you can have it on, you can look at it after, but no looking during. You just run by feel. And Steve and I have now created marathon and half marathon training programs with no paces whatsoever, all done by feel. We explain exactly how. So we've taken it one step further, and people are loving it so far. So it's been good. But what are your thoughts on why not knowing your pace is effective for runners, rather than, looking down every 10 seconds to make sure you're on the pace you wanted to run at?
That's a good question too. And there's a good answer to that. A friend of mine, and I'm sure he won't mind saying his name, Richard, he's in my triathlon club, the Wheeled Tri Club, I have to say that. So I was running with Richard the other day, and, it's triathlon season, everyone's doing some racing, which is great. It's really exciting. It's the start of the season. And, Rich did a race on the last weekend. And I think, his watch broke. It just stopped, I think, at the start of the triathlon. So, and he had to rely on his own feeling, exertion, etc. So that's a really good point. If you rely on technology and then in the race you don't have it for whatever reason, you have to be able to fall back on your intuition and instinct as well. So it's really important to train, I think. I'm a big believer in heart rate training, but also going by feel. And I have to look at your plans, but it might seem quite strange for a lot of people not to have that watch, which is a reassurance for them. But you can say, well, I'm going to go and run for half an hour, without saying I'm going to go and run 3 miles. You can go by time instead and just start jogging and work through your paces, and you will get familiar with where you're at. Do you find that with your
Oh,
with
absolutely.
your pace?
And actually, most people who have tried it, within one run, they're like, okay, I'm bought in. Because they realize, if you run slower, then it's because your body needed to run slower. And so often people will run faster than they thought they would. And if they'd known they were going that fast, they probably would have slowed down. And so they actually ran faster. So I just feel like mentally it's, of course you're wondering, am I running faster or slower? But like you said, it teaches you to listen to your intuition. I just wondered if there was a mental part of this that, like, is there anything that you would say that means that you get a mental break from not like obsessing about it and thinking about it?
No pressure, because often you'll be at odds with the time. Your body might be tired. You may not have had as much sleep that week, and you're out there running, and you want to be running 7.5 minute miles, and it feels tough. And first of all, you're looking at your watch. You're not focusing on your running. Again, you're probably not breathing as efficiently as you can be. Your form probably isn't as efficient as it could be because you're distracted by that number. And then often you get frustrated because you think, oh, well, this is really hard, and I'm not going as fast as I should be. You start shooting, and that's, again, negative on you, can be quite detrimental to your performance. So I think mentally you take away the watch, at least for, part of your runs. And, with your plans, I think it's a great idea not to have a watch. I ran a marathon, to New York Marathon, and I didn't even have a watch. I was a very, green when it came to technology and, all sorts of specific sessions. And I just mapped out a mile on a road and knew that was the mile, and I'd run backwards and forwards. That's the other thing. Going the other way is often good. And I became a good pacer because I got used to my ability and used to my exertion and used to my pace. So definitely, I'm glad your plans are out there. I think that would be fantastic.
No, I'm enjoying seeing how people are changing things and enjoying it.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, for one more question I wanted to kind of area I thought we could talk about is for people who kind of are struggling with motivation. They're in the middle of training and they're at that like tired point where they kind of lost their like mojo, and they're kind of like, oh, I don't really want to do this, or having a hard time staying motivated, just kind of falling off their training plan. What would you say to that? What can they do to kind of get it back?
I would, so again, do a check and think about what's going on in your life, because sometimes there is stuff going on outside of your running that can impact your motivation. You might have some stuff going on with your family or work. There could be some stresses at work. So mentally, you're taking more energy, putting more energy into other areas, and you're finding that your running is quite hard. I would, again, think about cross-training as well. So I know you believe in that. And, okay, your running's not going well, just go for a swim. Take a break for a couple of days. If you've got a coach, talk to your coach about it. Draw on your social support. So the people around you, your family or your running community, your friends, talk about it and maybe speak to someone who inspires you. Even read a book that's inspirational or watch an inspirational video. That's always a really good thing for me. I think when I'm suffering with low motivation, but often it could be that actually think about your training plan. Am I doing too much? Where are my rest days? It could be something practical that you need to alter, and it could be something going on outside of your running. So the point is take the pressure off yourself and give yourself that time to work it out. And you can always work it out. You can always tweak things to either make more time in your routine, in your week. But if you're suffering and, again, think about understanding why you're doing it, knowing what are you training for, what are your goals? Is your goal something you really want? Do you need to look at changing your goals? All of those things, which can be done. It's not, people sort of have this fear of perhaps, oh no, I've got this race and I want to do it. But do you? Have a think about it. Be flexible.
Very interesting and great advice there. Thank you. All right. So if someone wants to work with you, maybe tell us about what you offer, where they can find out more information. Obviously, I'll put links in the show notes, but just kind of give us an overview.
My website is the place to go. I'm really pleased with it. So my website is evieserventi.com. It's my name. And you can at least find out more about me there and the different things that I can offer in terms of my services. You can email me at sportpsych@evieserventi.com. So that's my psychology web, my email. And I think that's really it. And
so you offer like one-on-one sports psychology, like consultants?
Oh, yeah. So, I do one-to-one. I do quite a lot of Skype sessions with people, which is just amazing, being in the UK, being able to work with people all around the world.
In Lexington, Kentucky.
Hey, in Lexington, Kentucky, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I get to see the sun shining in your country.
Yeah.
So one-to-ones, that's usually the way that I work. I do group work as well, and I'm actually teamed up with a friend who's an osteopath, and we did a mindful running workshop. Yeah, that was really good fun. She's a Pilates teacher as well, so we combined some Pilates, some conditioning work and some psychology work in a running workshop. So they're really good fun.
That's great.
And club work, so going to clubs and speak to clubs about pre-race performance, routines, strategies and mental training tools, that sort of thing. But one-to-one in person or on Skype or phone or WhatsApp.
All right. WhatsApp. I don't know if you want to be going that far. You'll be getting hundreds of people getting your phone number.
That's the point.
But we are not quite finished yet, Evie. We have the Running for Real 4. So if you could tell me maybe a unique nutrition tip or something that you like to use.
Okay, my big one is banana smoothie. I make a smoothie before running. So make it up, natural yogurt, soy, almond, any milk that you can have, normal milk, cow's milk rather, not normal milk. Whoops. A banana, some honey, some frozen raspberries. So I buy fresh raspberries or strawberries, then I freeze them. And then when I want to make a smoothie, just put a handful of those in, dollop of honey, some cinnamon, blend it all up, and then have a few slurps before my run and put it in the fridge. And I have that after my run. It's just great because, you know, it's a smoothie, it's cold, it's tasty.
You're making me crave a smoothie, actually.
I know.
Really,
I'd have to go make a smoothie.
Yeah. Well, for you, that would be a strange little dinner, having a smoothie, but...
For you, it would be...
It's coming up to lunchtime, so I could have a smoothie for lunch. I can
make a smoothie.
Although I like making the smoothies so thick, Evie, that, like, you eat them out of a bowl. Yeah, like... I don't...
Really?
Yeah, I love them being, like, almost like... Well, like ice cream consistency. So I will put like all frozen stuff in there, like barely any liquid, because I like it being really thick.
Wow. Yeah. No, I like to have that. It's got to go through a straw. It's got to pass the straw test.
Well, there you go. We'll see what the listeners like. If they like this, you should tell us, either tweet at us or send us a message as to what kind of smoothie you like. Maybe that'll be the question of the week for my community. All right, so a running for real moment. So a moment where you were maybe embarrassed, or just like a moment that only runners would understand. Embarrassed, or like sad, or like an amazing moment, something where like you were like, oh, only runners would understand this.
Yeah, so I think crossing the line of a 10K where you've run really hard and it's been really uncomfortable, and you did have those moments in the race where you just thought, oh, this isn't great, I'm not feeling great, and you cross that line, and that feeling of all elation, all of that, you know, discomfort and that anxiety that you had in the race and all of that hard work that you put in, it just completely gets overridden with that feeling of joy, fatigue as well. But it's a great feeling. I love that.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Arms up. Woo.
Yeah, I love putting arms up. And another one, so this is going to be probably a pretty similar thing, but a high moment for you, something that was maybe a career highlight.
Oh, a career highlight was passing my master's, my dissertation, and being able to tell myself that I'm a sports psychologist. I think that was, I really worked, I am still working, but really worked, put a lot of effort in, and it's been a long road, and I'm just enjoying it, enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. You did so well. And finally, what do you tell yourself when you're standing on the start line?
What do I tell myself? Run your own race.
Good. That's good advice. All right. So Evie, the last thing I will say to you is I ask my guests to send me a photo of your power pose. So that's you, how you would stand on the start line to build your confidence. So will you take a picture, or send us a picture if you already have one, of you doing your power pose?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
I got it right. Yeah, I know what it is.
You know it. Okay, my dear friend, it was amazing talking to you, and I hope everyone else has enjoyed it. I am sure they will be checking out your website. I will put links again in the show notes at tinamuir.com/Evie, EVIE. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and I'm really, really happy to have been able to chat with you and all of your running community and your followers and our followers. It's been great. So everyone, I hope to speak with you sometime online or in person, and have a great weekend.
Yep.
Thanks, Tina.
Thanks. I don't know how anyone cannot absolutely just love that woman. She is just amazing. She's built a special place in my heart, and I know you guys are just going to love her, but so much of what she said was just so helpful today, and I know that I would have benefited so much if I knew this years ago, before I started really struggling with the mental side of things. And as I mentioned in the episode, Evie really was the one who turned things around for me. Like, I can't thank her enough for all that she's done. We will be putting links to everything we talked about today in the show notes, which again are at tinamuir.com/Evie. And you can find everything you need there, in addition to the Facebook community, in addition to the marathon and half marathon training programs, and anything else that we talked about in the show. So we do have another episode coming on Friday, so you can look forward to that one. But for now, this is, a one-off bonus episode on a Wednesday. And again, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and then you will get it directly to your phone or podcast player without having to go search for it. That's probably the easiest way to do things. And once again, I want to thank anyone who has shared or put the word out about this podcast. It really, really means so much, and I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. So I hope you have a wonderful National Running Day, and I will see you on Friday.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.